I just want to now go to Sunil and really understand, because your industry, while both on one hand there is significant improvement on network, bandwidth, etc. Devices are obviously going through a slowdown. But at this point in time, Sunil, in your job as a CFO, again, piece of cost, right, versus growth. How do you make these decisions, right? Or how are you making the decisions that there is cash conversation is happening with the board? You're looking at cost with a microscope. And I have seen, at least in my experience, a lot of times, certain time when we hit with crisis, we end up taking certain very tactical decisions, which can have a very long-term impact when things become better. And you could be then be falling behind the line. So tell us more about your industry and your experience on cost management and growth optimization. How are you making that, striking that balance?
Thank you, Bhavesh. So just for the benefit of some of those listeners who may still associate Nokia with the handsets, just wanted to clarify that I belong to a company which only licenses this brand but doesn't manufacture handsets. So what do we do? So we are basically a telecom infrastructure company, and basis that I'm sure you may know prizes for guessing that we are a B2B company, and our customers are primarily the Vodafones and the Airtels and the Jios of the Indian world. And a lot which we do actually depends upon what our customers want us to do, which I think is pretty natural for almost all industries and all companies. But in our case, given the fact that we have a very small customer base, but very large customers, so we practically have to align our policies, processes, and whatever our decisions we take to the decisions which our customers would actually want to take. So let me just step back a bit and say, I mean, all of us, those of us who are actually fortunate and who have had very little disruption in terms of continuation of our work profiles, so working from office, shifting to work from homes, I don't know how much of us have realized that this was because of the fact that there was a digital connectivity ecosystem which was available in this country. That is something which I think perhaps has never been, or rather very, very infrequently been recognized. I mean, let us, just spend a few seconds to think that one fine morning, all of us started to use Wi-Fi big time from our respective houses. And how many of us actually face problems? I believe a very small fraction of the entire population actually faced anything which was different from what it would normally have been. So how did it happen? See, it actually happened because of the fact that, number one, there was huge capacities which fortunately were available in this country when nobody had thought about COVID and this disaster or this pandemic hitting us. But yes, there was a capacity which was available. But then it was also important that the capacity which was available was also usable, and it was made available to the consumers in a manner which was totally glitch free. Just a second, there's a question here. Okay. So, sorry for the distraction here. I just got a question on my screen. Okay, so what did the telecom companies do? So they basically asked us to ensure that there was seamless connectivity which was available to the consumers. And if you recall, there were many companies who actually went beyond their so-called scope of corporate duties, and they gave a lot of free time, to people who could not recharge. I mean, their connections were actually not cut. The data which was available to them was also made very flexible. However, to be able to do that, they had to rely upon people like us, whether it was a Nokia or it was a Ericsson. So what we actually did during these times was that we listened to the voice of the final consumer. So that is what ultimately makes the difference. And we gave temporary software licenses to most of these telecom companies so that they could kind of increase their scope and increase their bandwidth so that the entire country kind of, keeps on working from home, so to say. That was one thing which I would like to say. And the second piece is that for such a huge network to run seamlessly, it is also important that it is maintained regularly. Now we have a huge staff strength in this country. Out of a total of about 15,000 people who work for Nokia, about 5 to 6,000 are actually deployed in ensuring that the networks work or networks operate without any interruption. So that is what we call as maintaining the networks. Although given the technology which we have, about 70% of that can be done remotely. But there are about 30% of the cases where a physical on-site movement is required. And it is also a case where we have to do a lot of repairs, if I may kind of simplify the whole thing, a hardware repair or a kind of a board repair. So these are things which we as a company, with the help of our employees, and I must say that a lot of what we currently are and the situation in which we currently find ourselves is primarily to do not so much with the leadership, but with the kind of resilience which was showed by the employees. And I would give a lot of credit and a lot of gratitude to the staff which is working for us. Even during COVID times, there were people who actually risked their lives and ensured that the networks were working seamlessly, and the repair activities which happens in some of our state-of-the-art repair centers went about, maybe not in the same fashion, but at least in a fashion which made sustainability of the telecom networks a reality. Now, to be able to do that from our perspective, and I will come to your question about cost, etc., but I think this is very important, Bhavesh. And to be able to do that, it was important for us to be able to provide them the best possible safety precautions, which we could. I will not go into the details of them, but it was something which was, which I would say that I was also personally surprised, or rather pleasantly surprised, that we were able to provide them at such a short notice absolutely protective gears and governance perspective. So governance means also so that we could ensure that they were not putting their lives at risk. So what I am saying is that in times like these, for companies to survive, it is very important for us to listen to the heart of the customer and listen to the heart of in our case, the final consumer. Because at the end of the day, it is not so much about the head as it is about the heart when it comes to addressing or kind of tackling pandemics like these. And now coming on to your other question about, how are we controlling cost and what are we actually doing? So basically, the mantra across the company is think frugal. And when I say think frugal, what I mean basically is two things: conserve the cash and then control the costs. I mean, I don't need to amplify to the audience here as to what do I mean by these things, but what I mean basically is that when it comes to conserving cash, we have to look at each and every stakeholder, which is important for any corporate. So starting with your customers, we have to ensure that we maintain a high customer engagement. I gave you enough examples of that. Then when you look at your vendors, because we also have a manufacturing setup here, and we had to ensure that our manufacturing went on seamlessly, subject to the lockdowns, and thanks to the government that we were designated as essential services, and we were able to kind of continue the manufacturing, maybe not in the same shape and form, but yes, at a much reduced rate, but still, we kept on with the manufacturing. And there you have to ensure that you have the right vendors on your side. So you have to kind of identify the crucial vendors. You have to ensure that that the crucial vendors are kind of paid on time. So a bit of ABC analysis also is required on a vendor perspective, much the same way as it is required even on the customer perspective. And lastly, just to, if I'm taking too much of time, Bhavesh, I will just try to kind of close my initial remarks. I think what is also important is that we have to make sure that when it comes to the employees, we have to ensure that they get the right amount of confidence. In all the discussions so far, we have not talked so much about the employees, and I would like to kind of maybe spend just about 30 seconds on that. We have heard a lot of people talking about layoffs, people talking about salary cuts, people talking about restructuring, compensations, etc. I mean, these are things which I think at least we have not given too much importance and attention to. What we believe is that it is extremely important for us to have a motivated workforce. They are under a lot of pressure in any case. I'm not saying that this will apply to all industries. We have been more fortunate than some of other industrial houses. We have been slightly much more fortunate, but I would say that rather than restructuring employees, rather than laying them off, it would be better if we can find some other ways and means, and we can talk about it in case there is time, in case time permits later on. And that is, I think, extremely important for companies like us to ensure that we have the third important piece when it comes to the stakeholder, which is the employees, well motivated and their morals are kept high. Thanks, Bhavesh.